Hello everybody, it's Wyron here with a quick Total War Warhammer 2 patch review. We've just had the Kharybdiss patch notes released. This is a bit of a mixed bug fix, unit release patch, and honestly it has got me absolutely psyched. And probably not for the reasons you guys are thinking. Obviously the content is not as much, we're only getting one new thing. We're getting the Kharybdiss, and I honestly don't care about that too much. I'm mostly psyched for all the updates and actually the balance changes that have been implemented, because some of them, in my opinion, are really, really good, especially for multiplayer. So regardless, guys, let's hop right in and kind of discuss what's happening. So first and foremost, we are getting the Kharybdiss. So by the look of it, the Kharybdiss is an anti-large poisonous monster. It does seem to have some sort of breath attack, judging by the Abyssal Howl description here. I'm not entirely sure how it's going to, if it really has much of a place in the Dark Elf roster, to be honest. It's large, it's anti-large, slow probably, much like the Hydra, and armor piercing with poison. It's great and all. We already have Blackguard, and we already have Cold One Knights and Dark Shards and all that. The plethora of Dark Elf anti-large. So I'm not entirely sure it's going to be that useful, but it does look like a very cool unit. You can see it here with all its hideous mouths coming in to munch on a poor tree man. So we'll definitely see what its stats are, and I think based on that we'll have a more greater assumption or a great idea of whether or not it's going to be a good unit or not. But nonetheless, based on what we're seeing, it's going to be pretty cool. I just don't think it's going to be that much of a game changer. But that was the nominal sort of topical point of this patch. More importantly, we're getting a whole bunch of bug fixes, changes, and in my opinion, big improvements. So first and foremost, Hellbrand's Cursed Blade has been changed. It now does a lot less damage by the look of it. Now, it might be when it says deal up to 144 damage to a single target when the phase was applied. I don't know if this means it'll do sort of like what Spirit Leech does, where you hit a model in a unit and it does like 144 damage, and then it's bleeds over to another model, or if it just means that you can at max you can kill, say, one model, which would actually make it very limited against infantry or cavalry, and make it still okay against heroes and lords. The phase can still be reapplied every 10 seconds, so you can still kind of do what she does now, but I think it's much more balanced, and it's not going to be those ludicrous amounts of damage we were seeing previously. Rogue armies correctly spawning, that's a campaign fix that I think is good. The Rogue armies could spice life up a little bit. Hopefully it's not going to be some ridiculous spawns like it was before. Archon's Legion of Death will now have add faction-wide buffs to Fellbats, Crypt Ghouls, Dire Wolves, and Hex Raids. This is huge. Now, Alariel has her own unique skills to buff Fellbats, or not Fellbats, Dryads, Treekin, and all those. But I think it only applies within her own army. Whereas Archon will now who previously couldn't buff his vampire count units at all, will now be able to buff them on a faction-wide level, which I think is really cool. I'm still not entirely sure it's going to make them that viable in late game, just because there's no supporting. You don't have Invocation of Knack, you don't have that sort of supporting magic that makes vampire count units so good. But still, I think it's a big buff, and I think it's definitely was very much needed. Bone Giant made a construct and given +10 leadership. Leadership is, I think, fairly irrelevant, but the construct trait definitely good. Gives you some better healing options there. The Bretonnian starting armies have been fixed. Another huge campaign fix. Really got me psyched. Bretonnia basically, and I don't mean to say they would become unplayable, but it kind of dropped to trash tier campaign faction. Before I thought it was pretty fun, simply because their starting armies were garbage, and so you couldn't really do some of those early shock and awe maneuvers that you could before. So definitely a big fix. Tyrion's -1 recruitment time now applies to Sisters of Avalorn and Shadow Warriors, which I think is also pretty ridiculous. Means he's going to be able to do some pretty spammy shenanigans. Especially since these two, or especially the Sisters, are just such a spam-worthy unit, really, in campaign. Firebark Elders, I actually didn't even realize these were bugged. I all got Chain Lightning normally in Quick Match, so I don't know if it was bugged in campaign or something. It says the abilities for the Firebarks and Summoners of Rage were fixed. I don't know what the problem was, to be honest. Then the rest of it is isn't that important. There's a few little changes, like Star of Avalorn here for Alariel. We've got some fixes or some changes to runesmith capacity that you can get with the building chain there. There's some small changes to just display and UI and how AI behaves. I don't think any of those are that important, but I definitely like these first few changes, which I think are actually pretty huge and pretty impactful. So I think that's definitely solid. Now onto the balance changes, and this is really the meat and potatoes of what I want to discuss here. Some pretty big ones, and actually right off the bat we've got Beastmen changes, which are, in my opinion, not a bad idea. going over, the Bestigors lost 5 armor. Not the end of the world, but it will make them a little more manageable. 5 armor is in some ways, due to the way armor works, it's in some ways more valuable than one might think, and it's a good change. I think Bestigors are pretty ridiculous as is. They're definitely a little excessively cost efficient, in my opinion. I play quite a bit of Beastmen. I don't want to say they're my go-to stat padding faction, but they're definitely very I think that's probably Bretonia, but they're pretty powerful, and I think this is a good move. Gorehurt's getting extra melee attack is also good, I think, because Gorehurts right now are heavily overshadowed by Bestigors, so hopefully this will kind of gap close a little bit and make it them a little more viable. Cygor ROR getting plus 50 cost. I'm not entirely sure why that is. I haven't really seen it much in Quick Match, and I haven't really used it much in Quick Match. I don't think it's that valuable, but maybe it is. I don't know. It shouldn't be a game changer there. It's only 1 unit. That's already very expensive, so it shouldn't make too much of a difference. Then for Bretonia, and here we have a huge amount of buffs and improvements in my opinion. Royal Hippogriff Knights, plus 10 armor, plus 400 mass. This should make it, previously they could get bogged down way too easily. I'm hoping this is going to be the fix that lets them push through enemy units and get in and out of combat much more easily. If it is, they could make Hippogriff Knights an actually viable unit. Plus 10 armor, also nice for absorbing arrow fire and helping them survive, but I don't think that's as important as the mass buff. King Lewin, Alberic, and the Lord all get plus 10 armor. Once again, I don't think this is the hugest buff ever, but still, an improvement is an improvement, so solid. The Green Knight, plus 480 health, which is huge. That's his only source of survivability beyond melee defense and physical resist, which is already pretty good. But besides those two, this is his main source of survivability, so extra health, especially on an ethereal unit, is absolutely ludicrous, and I think this is going to make him really pretty strong, stronger than he already is in some matchups. Going further, we can see Foot Squires dropping by 50 in cost. Mounted Yeoman Archers also dropping by 50 in cost. These two units definitely needed it. They were way overpriced for what they were. Maybe not Foot Squires, honestly. Foot Squires were kind of crap. And but they could do AP and dish out some hurt, so maybe they didn't need it. But the Mounted Yeoman Archers especially were horribly overpriced for what they were. I still don't think we're going to see spam of Bretonian Infantry or Mounted Yeoman Archers. Obviously, it's also kind of blocked nowadays with unit pick limits, but definitely this thing is a solid improvement. It's going to make the Bretonian infantry line and mounted archery much better than it previously was. I think this is definitely a good step. Similarly, Foot Squires, the Regiment of Renown got a drop in price. Questing Knights actually got plus 50 cost, the Regiment of Renown, and I completely agree with that. I think they're an incredibly powerful unit. They're kind of ridiculous, honestly, and the fact that they'll cost the same as Grail Knights seems entirely in line for what their performance is. Now here's the fun stuff. +1 melee attack. There was a +1 melee attack for the Foot Squire Regiment of Renown. But here's what I think are really the fun changes here. And besides maybe the Hippogriff one, these are like the big game changers. All the men-at-arms units and spearmen-at-arms have gotten the expendable attribute. This is kind of huge. Previously, one of the big problems for Bretonian builds, in my opinion, was that you'd go with a bunch of infantry, or you'd bring a decent amount of infantry. They'd end up routing. They'd get wrecked by the enemy infantry, or they'd just get destroyed somehow. And then it drags the morale of your knights down, which doesn't really make sense. Bretonian knights don't give a darn about the peasants, and it really, I think, made these guys made him a bit more of a pain, because you bring several men-at-arms units, they end up routing, they end up shattering, they get annihilated, and then it drags the morale of your knights down. Your knights end up losing, not because of their own lack of quality, but because the peasants routed. So I think this is going to be more of a buff in campaign, really, than anything. But even in quick match, I could see this being a very, very good sort of booster for Bretonia. It's going to make the knights that much more competitive, I think. So very cool. Then the Paladin actually got the Guardian ability and +12 bonus versus large, which is very nice. It makes sense. He's kind of there as a bodyguard unit. The +12 bonus versus large should make him a little more competitive against large targets. He's still not going to be a great sort of Lord Sniper or anything like that. He's still probably not going to be a top-tier hero, but this does make him a lot more valuable. Potentially opens up some opportunities for goon squatting and stuff like that. You could throw him in with, say, Lewin or even Bordelot on a Pegasus, and you could have like a flying goon squad maybe. I don't know. Well, we got to see. For Chaos, some changes. Well, nerfs and buffs. Kolek got to increase the projectile hitbox. I don't really know how much of a difference that makes. He's already pretty easy to hit. I've never really experienced problems hitting him. I don't know. Either way, Chosen all lost 1 hit point. So it seems that CA is trying to bring down the HP of the top tier infantry for because Black Orcs got a similar nerf as well. Regardless, they should still be very competitive, and I still think they should be able to mow through all enemy opposition in a one-to-one basis. Marauders got +1 charge bonus, not the most amazing thing ever. Same with the Marauder Horsemasters here. A little better, but nothing to brag about. Sigvald, -50 cost. Sorthorel +50. I don't think that's justified. Sorthorel is decent, but honestly, I don't think he's should be more expensive. I think he's in the right spot. Maybe I'm missing something. I don't know. Hellcannon lost some accuracy, and the Hellcannon RR got +50 cost. I don't think this is at all right. Maybe some of you guys disagree with me. If you do, be sure to mention it, but I don't think the Hellcannon is really all that good right now. I think it's still kind of trash. I'd basically never bring them in quick match. The Hellcannon ROR also just isn't that good for the price. The special ability is honestly pretty easy to proc. You just grab a Flying Lord, which is a pretty common pick, or even just a Fast Lord. Run him within the 200-meter radius, pop its ability, waste it, and then you push through if you need to. Or you just have your own artillery to shut Hellcannons down. So I'm not that impressed here. I don't think this is that great of an idea to nerf Hellcannons, but maybe that's just me. Swords of Chaos got a buff as well to their melee damage. They have +3 AP. I think that's a good buff. I think they were in a decent spot before, but this will make them a little more competitive. It's not going to make them OP, and it'll be decent. Dark Elves. Once again, some fun stuff here. Raven Heralds got +5 hit points per entity. They definitely needed it. I still don't think it's going to make them super tanky or survivable, but it's +90 HP. They were an 18 model unit, so +90 will make them at least survive more than a single volley from enemy arrows, hopefully. Bolt Fiends lost Murderous Mastery. They're now down to Murderous Prowess, which is okay, and it does mean that price went down by 25, which honestly I'm completely fine with. You don't bring Dark Shards really to take advantage of Murderous Mastery. You bring it for the and with the cost reduction, that'll make them much better. Doomfire Warlocks and Slaaneash's Harvesters went up in price. Definitely well deserved. These two units were already basically must picks in most matchups, and that's, I don't think, good. A unit should not be an insta-lock, essentially, and I think this is a move in the right direction to nerf them a little bit without completely crippling them. And the Sisters of Slaughter losing some melee stats, and more importantly, missile block chance, -15%. That'll put them down to the same level as Swordmasters, which seems pretty accurate given that they're trying to block with like a buckler that's tiny and barely covers their forearm. Like, that sounds about fair. I think this is about right. It should tone them down a bit, make them a little more susceptible to their given counters, rather than what they currently are, where really the only good counter to Sisters of Slaughter is Heavy Cav. So I think this is a good move in general. For the Dwarves, nothing much. Thane went down in price, which is good. Gyro Bomber got more damage on its projectiles. It's still trash. Honestly, it frustrates me. The gyrocopters in general are garbage units. The two normal gyrocopters are basically very, very, very niche picks. Ever since the Dwarves got better anti-large options and greater mass, gyrocopters lost their only major niche of countering chariots, and they're just not good. They need to be fixed, and this is one of the big oversights here. And this is one of the things that kind of disappoints me with this batch. They didn't do anything to fix those, but they'll get to it in time, I assume. One can hope. Nonetheless, I don't think this is going to do very much. But here's what I'm excited for. Here's what I'm really hyped for, and that is the changes to Empire. So, whoop whoop, my favorite faction, the faction I play a whole bunch. Big buffs. Flagellants, +2 hit points per entity, which is pretty solid. That's with a 90 model unit. That means you're getting 180 more HP. That's actually pretty solid. That makes overall it can make a decent difference if you're trying to. It can make a difference between an extra hit or not. That hit points do come into play sometimes, and it can definitely make a difference there between your enemy needing an extra hit or not to kill you. But that's not really even the top stuff here, and actually there's more Empire buffs down below that we'll discuss in a little bit. But Halberdiers, they got upgraded charge defense to expert charge defense. This is huge. This is currently a trait that you only see on like Ironbreakers, a handful of Lords, the Phoenix Guard, who are a unit that costs twice as much, almost. Actually more than twice as much. And a handful of Regiments of Renown spear units. And now it's available to a generic run-of-the-mill Empire infantry unit. That costs 650, granted, but they're also getting +4 leadership. This is can make them, I think, especially against factions that don't want great shooting, this is going to make them a great holding unit. One of the big problems for Halberdiers right now is that enemy infantry is a little under 50% chance or a little under the base chance to hit against them when they're actually in melee, when they're actually in an atrocious fight. But all enemy infantry tends to have such a huge edge and charge bonus that they plow in. You get hit by a unit of Bestigors, you get hit by a unit of Chosen or Chaos Warriors or whatever, and that whatever plus 20 charge bonus, plus 30 charge bonus they might have means that your halberdiers get dumpstered within the first 15 seconds of an engagement, and then they aren't really able to hold the line. They fall apart. Now with expert charge defense, and honestly, you don't have to move to engage infantry. This is going to make them, I think, a much more viable frontline unit. I could be wrong, but I'm definitely hyped to try this out and see just how well they work. Especially with that plus 4 leadership and expert charge defense, I could see this being an absolute huge buff for halberdiers. We'll see. But I think against factions like Beastmen or against factions like Chaos, who are Orcs, who don't have too much shooting and who rely massively on charge bonuses to get stuff done early on, this could be a very, very big buff. Then we do have Greatswords, minus 50 cost, also huge because Greatswords are honestly kind of overpriced right now for what they do. Minus 50 cost puts them at 900. It's going to make them much more affordable. So I could see the Empire infantry line getting huge improvements here. And we're not even done with their buffs, so we'll get to those in a little bit. Greenskins, Black Orcs, lost HP and charge bonus. Not the end of the world. There's only 60 of them, so it's minus 60 HP. They already have more HP than most heavy cav, so I'm not too concerned. And a loss to charge bonus is not great, but honestly not the end of the world either, because they're still a solid unit. Honestly, once again, like Bestigors, these guys do deserve a little bit of a nerf. They're just so ridiculous right now. High Elves, Swordmaster of Hoth went down in cost. I don't think this is necessarily bad. They are kind of underutilized right now in the High Elf roster. At the same time, this, I think, will only exacerbate the fact that they're way better than, or really, in my opinion, they're a lot better than Hargoneth Executioners. Because now they only cost 50 more grand. They're two separate factions, but Swordmasters are just objectively basically better than Hargoneth Executioners. Now they're almost the same cost. I don't know how I feel about this, though I do feel, especially because the Hargoneth Executioners didn't get a corresponding drop in cost. I don't know. We'll see. It could be good. Or it definitely will be good for the High Elves, but I don't know if it's entirely fair there. Olithanar got an increase to projectile muzzle velocity. I guess that's decent. I don't think he has homing arrows like the Wood Elves, so that should make him a little more accurate. Minor increase in projectile accuracy for Sisters. It's good. I don't think it's going to be the end of the world. Not going to be huge game changers either, but it's good. I think that'll be a big improvement. But Lizardmen, Cold One Riders went down in cost of 800, which I think is nice. It'll make them a little more of a spammy interference interrupting unit. A big problem is still the fact that they pay a lot for AP while their stats are pretty trash. Essentially, they got light cav stats with heavy cav mobility, kind of heavy cav armor, and very bad AP. But it's kind of like Orc Boar Boys. You're paying a lot for a trait that doesn't always see that much use, especially for the function you're trying to use them for. But this could be an improvement. More importantly, Croxigors. This is another big buff that I don't care for that much because I don't play Lizardmen, but is actually, I think, a very big buff. Plus 16 hit points per entity on Croxigors. That's reasonable. It's not, once again, it's not a game changer, I don't think. If we do the math real quick, it's on a normal unit on large size, you're looking at an extra 192 HP, which is decent. That's 200 HP more. It means they can probably tank like one extra hit from an enemy unit very consistently. So all in all, good buff. And extra missile resist is very important though, because currently that's probably one of the biggest shutdowns to Croxigors is just mass missile fire. I do apologize, guys. I'm kind of ranting through this, but there's a lot of great buffs and great improvements here, and I'm honestly pretty psyched. More so than I was for the last patch, despite the far greater content we got in the last patch. Norska. Buffs to the Mammoth, buffs to the Marauder Champions. Honestly, Marauder Champions, I don't know how much they need extra leadership. What needed a buff was Marauder Champions with great weapons, who are not getting a buff. But, oh well. Mammoth, big buff. Extra bonus versus infantry, which is not that relevant, I think, but plus 3,000 mass. And for those of you who don't know, apparently previously, the Mammoth had different function like a chariot, which meant the way it engaged and the way it functioned, that's why it was apparently part of the reason why it was crushing infantry so heavily. That, stacked on top of the fact that infantry had much less HP back in the day, made it an absolute beast. Now, though, apparently its mass was pretty low. So, with the changes, now it no longer functions like a chariot. Infantry has more HP. It's definitely, honestly, a bit weaker, and except for the Soul Crusher, I think Mammoths, and maybe Feral Mammoths in certain specific situations, I don't think Mammoths are really worthwhile. So I do hope that this buff will make them a little better at just plowing through enemy lines, nuking down infantry, and all that sort of stuff. So I do think that they need to be more powerful than they currently are. They're just way too weak. They went from being OP to kind of crap. Marauder Great Weapons and Marauder Horsemasters got the same buff their friends in the Chaos roster got. Once again, nothing fancy. Icehorn Marauders dropped in cost, which is good, I think. I don't know if they were overpriced before, but they certainly weren't underpriced. They weren't an amazing unit. Familiar Warriors losing with Great Weapons, losing bonus first large. Not the end of the world. Doesn't make me thrilled. I did like the fact that they had good anti-large, but I don't know. Maybe they were overperforming. Familiar Warriors got plus 10 base melee damage, so that's non-AP. That's solid, I think. Honestly, I don't know if they needed it once again. They're already a almost must-pick in most Norscan rosters I see, but still not a bad change, I think. For Skaven, buffs to Death Runners, nothing fancy there with charge bonus. Plus 2 health on the Plague Monk Sensor Bears, decent buff. Once again, it's 180 more HP. Warp Lightning Cannon, Plague Claw, Catapult, this is a big buff. Extra HP on the catapults and the artillery. I don't know if it's just a flat buff to the... One thing I'm not entirely sure is if it's a flat buff to the entire unit or if it's a buff to the artillery pieces themselves. If it's a buff to the artillery pieces themselves, this is very important because Skaven artillery right now is way too easy to counter battery. If it's not, this isn't that much of a buff, but we'll see. The other buffs there are not too important, I don't think. Vampire Counts, Devils of Schwarzhofen are cheaper. Graveguard with Great Weapons are now cheaper. Both good moves, as both of those units are fairly overpriced. And just, yeah, they need it. And then Wood Elves with Eternal Guard and War Dancer Regiment of Renown both went down by 50 in cost. I'm actually not sure this is entirely correct. Both units are already incredibly strong. And this is despite the fact that Wood Elves are probably my second favorite faction after Empire. There's definitely no I definitely don't think there's much faction favoritism going on here. But War Dancer Regiment of Renown right now trashes Chosen Halberds in melee. They're fast enough to keep up with most heavy cav. They've got Frenzy. They've got a temporary stock. They've got a huge boost to melee attack. They're a ridiculous unit. I don't know why they need less melee or less cost. But you know what? I'll take it. I'll take it. And then Eternal Guard Regiment of Renown. I don't know. They're already pretty solid, but they might need a little more. But this is okay, and this is where we really get to what I wanted to discuss, and this is what I'm super hyped about probably for Empire. Hold the Line has been replaced. Actually, first of all, Hold the Line has been buffed a whole bunch. So, Hold the Line, they replaced 100% charge resistance, which, in case you don't know what that meant, that just meant your unit got 100% more mass when they were bracing against or trying to stop a charge. That's not that amazing, honestly. It may let you soak up cavalry a little better. It might let you soak up, like, a chariot a little better. But it's not that amazing. Plus 5 melee defense is much more useful. That means it's going to be plus 5 melee defense, plus 4 leadership. That is going to make the Empire infantry line, with an Empire captain thrown in there, or even just some sort of general thrown in on a foot, going to hold so much better, in my opinion. Throw down the new Halberdiers with their full charge resistance, stacked on top of, say, an Empire captain, and I could honestly see Empire builds now going with like a Balthazar, and we've got actually I should finish first before we got a Hammer of Sigmar here, which is new AOE 40 meter radius. For the Hammer of Sigmar, which, if you didn't know, before it was it only targeted the warrior priest, which made it basically trash because the warrior priest wasn't very good to begin with. This basically just brought him up to an okay level. But now with Hammer of Sigmar, you've got a 40 meter radius. You can bring your warrior priest, and have a plus 26 melee attack buff. I'm not entirely sure what the duration is, but I think it's like 20 to 30 seconds. It's actually not a bad duration on this spell. It just doesn't last that long. It doesn't function right now, but now it serves a function, and I can see this being very strong. Then you got the Grand Hammer of Sigmar, so duration's been increased to 50 seconds. Once again, really good. We're gonna make something like Volkmar a lot stronger. Shield of Faith, duration increased to 25 seconds. Grand Shield of Faith reduced to 40 meter radius, duration increased to 50 seconds. So huge buffs to the sort of ward saves abilities that you get, as well as huge buffs to the melee attack buffs, to the melee defense buffs. Honestly, I could see builds like Balthazar with a captain and warrior priest being viable. You get a caster with Balthazar, you get Empire captain, and you get a warrior priest to stack up your front line, to jack him up, juice him up, give him great melee stats. You could get some ludicrous or something like Boris Stodbringer. Honestly, you get Boris Stodbringer, he can Hold the Line. stack that on top of his crazy debuffs that he's got already, throw him in with some sort of caster, and then a warrior priest, and you could be just monster matching, crushing enemy units. I could see some like pretty crazy melee oriented builds now with Empire, and honestly, I'm kind of psyched. This will make Karl Franz. You can throw this. Karl Franz usually roam with a Cap Goon squad. You throw this on him, they've got +5 melee defense now. That's gonna make Reichsguard so much better. That's gonna make units like Demigriff Knights with Halberds so much better when they're in support range for a Lord. Or you put a captain with your cavalry, get +5 melee defense. I could see this is gonna be, in my opinion, and I know I sound like I'm fangirling a little bit here, but this has me absolutely psyched. I'm really hyped for these buffs. Empire, I think, is going to get a huge quality of life buff this match. I'm really, really psyched for that. Everything else here, I think, is great too. I actually agree with the vast majority of these buffs and changes. I think there might be like one with the Elkin that I don't approve of, but everything else, I think, is perfectly in line. I think it's on the right track, if not ideal. And definitely, I think I love what's coming out with this patch. Kharybdiss, cool. That's also nice for all of you Dark Elf players out there. But definitely I'm hyped. So I do hope you guys enjoyed my little rant here. I do hope you, liked my overview of the patch notes and enjoyed the insight. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe down below, and to keep up with additional content with more sort of reviews and stuff like this, and obviously gameplay content. If you have any questions, anything like that, if you would like to share your own opinions on this patch notes. If you have different opinions on them than me, that's fine. I'd honestly love to know if you guys think we're gonna break Empire, make him broke OP or something. If you think it's gonna be, if you think we're gonna, some of these buffs or nerfs are excessive, be sure to let me know. I'd honestly love to hear about it. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.